Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, taking another deep dive into this USC program and talking about some transfer portal targets that have emerged the last couple days for the Trojans. We're updating this list about twice a week at this point. I also want to have a conversation on what the USC quarterback room is going to look like in 2024. It's something that I've put a lot of time and thought about the last couple of days, trying to picture what Lincoln Riley and his plan will be for this USC quarterback room. Would love to hear from you guys as well. I'm kind of torn about it. I would love to hear your guys' feedback. Really excited to get into this one. Before we get into it, just want to say thank you to you guys and a shout out, as always, to the USC fans. This is a program that many of you guys know I have a blast talking about. The amount of support you guys have shown the boys, all the fight-ons in the comment section. It's awesome. Can't thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We will continue to update USC in their activity in the transfer portal. And without further ado, let's get into it. I want to start, before we start talking about some transfer portal targets that have emerged the last couple of days, I want to talk about what this quarterback room for USC is going to look like in 2024. And I think a lot of USC fans, including myself in this, believe that Miller Moss has earned the right to be the starting quarterback for USC in 2024. And I went back and watched the film of what Miller Moss just did to Louisville the other night. One of the more impressive quarterback performances that we've seen in a very long time. Obviously, 6 touchdown passes, 370 yards passing, but kind of the smaller things, not just what the numbers show on the stat sheet. Miller Moss's ability to play within the offense, distribute the football to a ton of different playmakers in this USC offense. 9 different USC Trojans caught a pass from Miller Moss on Wednesday night. That's how you picture Lincoln Riley's offense to look. And what you saw Miller Moss do was not only kind of operate within the offense, but he also made those dynamic plays that you want from a quarterback. He's not just a game manager. I mean, he made some extremely impressive throws where he stood in the pocket, took hits, stepped up, and delivered absolute strikes down the field. And I don't want the narrative to be Miller Moss just playing within the offense and being a product of Lincoln Riley and the offense, because Miller Moss was a top 100 national recruit coming out of the 2021 class for a reason. Miller Moss is extremely talented when you combine the talented arm and the ability to make some of those special throws, but also just making the routine throws and making the routine plays within this Lincoln Riley offense. That's how you see the special performance Miller Moss put on Wednesday night against the Louisville defense that, I'll remind people, is one of the better defenses that we saw in the entire country. So whether we agree or not, Miller Moss is going to be a part of this quarterback room 100%. I think he should be the starting quarterback personally. You look at the quarterback room, this is kind of where the discussion starts. And the discussion is, you have Miller Moss, and obviously with a guy like Malachi Nelson transferring out and Jake Jensen being there, the quarterback room in terms of depth is awfully thin in 2024. And obviously you have a guy like Julian Lewis coming in, expecting to reclassify to 2025. You like the future of what the quarterback room looks like, but is Lincoln Riley going to try to take a quarterback in the transfer portal to whether to become in and compete for a starting role or add depth? How does that look? Right. So I think what I picture is 2 different scenarios. One, Lincoln Riley can sell to a veteran quarterback that, hey, you can come into this program. I can't guarantee you a starting spot, but you can come in and be a part of a quarterback room under Lincoln Riley, Cliff Kingsbury, that you know you're going to get developed and you know you're going to become a better football player. So you could add a veteran who maybe is just looking for a spot to play and be a quarterback too. You saw that my Michigan Wolverines went out and grabbed a backup quarterback who is now backing up J.J. McCarthy. Or you could go the route where we're going to go grab a young guy who's in the portal, maybe from the 2022 or 2023 class, and bring them in and have them sit behind Miller Moss for a year or two and then potentially be the guy. But, and I'm not saying by any means that USC has a problem for their starting quarterback in 2024, because I think Miller Moss is straight up a dude. But I am wondering what the backup situation and what the overall quarterback room looks like in 2024 behind Miller Moss. So I think most of us agree. We want to see a little bit more Miller Moss. We think he's that guy. And more importantly, you saw the players really rally around Miller Moss. And what does it look like if Miller Moss leads you to a massive bowl game win where it kind of boosts the optimism around this program heading into the Big Ten in 2024. And then you go in and bring a guy like Will Howard to take his spot. I don't see the locker room necessarily taking that extremely well. You saw those players play extremely hard, led by Miller Moss. I think most of them feel like he's earned that spot. He's been a guy that has never wavered in his commitment to this program. And I think he has a lot of respect from a lot of different players in that locker room. What's it look like if you bring in a guy like Will Howard to take Miller Moss's spot, where many could argue that he earned that starting spot in that bowl game? So that's where I'm at with the quarterback. I would love to hear what you guys think, whether they should go at a quarterback, whether they should just stay put and trust Miller Moss and hopefully he stays healthy and maybe Jake Jensen gets developed. Would love to hear you guys, your takes on what Lincoln Riley is going to do with the quarterback room. I'll say this, and I preface this a lot with the quarterback discussion around USC. I trust Lincoln Riley to manage a quarterback room, right? And he's got some stuff to learn as a head coach, obviously on the defensive side of the football, building a winning culture. We know he's still developing as a head coach, but we trust Lincoln Riley to make sure the quarterback room is right with USC. Now, what's more exciting for USC fans is talking about some more names that have emerged in the transfer portal for USC. And the first guy I want to talk about, and this is funny timing because I was spending all this time kind of like a jigsaw puzzle, looking at USC's depth chart, looking at the players available in the portal, looking up buzzing some of their film, looking up some numbers. And as I was doing this, I get a notification on my phone. Collins Achimapong, a former 2023 recruit, has entered the transfer portal from Miami. And I said, well, I was prepping defensive line prospects for USC. I'm going to add him to the list. And this is a guy that, as a Michigan fan, he was formerly committed to Michigan, flips his commitment to Miami. The one thing exciting about Collins Achimapong is he's a guy that when he was coming out of high school was a super raw prospect. He was 6'6", 240 pounds. You weren't really sure what position he was going to play, what his body was going to look like after his freshman year. He goes to Miami. He gets up to 270, 275 pounds. Now he's hit the portal. USC has the opportunity to essentially grab a player that Miami used a scholarship on to develop for a year in the weight room and then bring him into USC where he might be more ready to contribute for USC going into his second year. He's from the state of California, was a top target for USC coming out of that 2023 class, and obviously a position in need for USC. And I think he kind of fits right in because what has been the narrative that we talked about with Danton Lynn and this defensive staff? What are they looking for on the defensive line? They're looking for guys that are scheme versatile and can play a lot of different positions on this front. Colin Achimapong can play on the inside at that 3-tech because he's still continuing to put on weight. And he's 6'7", so you can put on some more weight if you want, but he's athletic enough to also play that edge rusher spot. And he hadn't played anymore at Miami, and we kind of knew he wouldn't play early in his tenure coming out of in his college career out of high school because he was a raw prospect. But now you're getting a little bit more of a better version, a more developed version of Collins Achimapong. And one of the things that you cannot deny is that this kid has extremely high potential because you're looking at a long, big, athletic frame that is kind of the movement skills for the size are special. This was a guy that was a really good basketball player coming out of high school, and you know the athleticism is there. So I think USC would be very smart to go pursue a guy like Collins, and you never know. I think this is another kind of lottery ticket of sorts, a guy that you bring in, you see what you have, but the potential of what he could be, whether it's year 2, whether it's year 3 of his college football career, is extremely high. Now, another target that we're talking about and USC has offered, and I really like this with Coach Entz because Coach Entz, he coached North Dakota State. He knows the guys that are able to go from North Dakota State to Power 5 football. Javier Derrick, sorry about that. Defensive lineman from North Dakota State is a guy going into his 6th year of college football. He's a guy that you kind of look at USC and building depth and building those capable bodies on that defensive line. You're getting a finished product here. So on Collins' standpoint, you're still getting a work in progress. A guy like Derrick, you are getting a finished product that's going to come in and immediately boost the talent and depth of that USC defensive line. And again, you're trusting Coach Entz saying, hey, I've coached this guy for the last couple of years. I know what he can be like. And he's a guy that I think I'm confident in. They wouldn't have offered him if they weren't. that he can make that step from that FCS level to the Power 5 level for USC. He's another target that I'm keeping an eye on. USC offered him a couple days ago. Now, two more guys I want to talk about. One at the linebacker spot, and this is a spot that, especially with Tackett Curtis transferring out, I think this spot can get better, right? And Matt Entz, you're bringing in Matt Entz to get this linebacker room right. It was a room that flat out just was disappointing, right? We were really excited about a guy like Mason Cobb coming from Oklahoma State. He ended up missing 23.8% of his tackles and largely just did not achieve what a lot of us thought he could have for USC in 2023. A guy like Eric Gentry, who I'm still pretty high on in terms of what he can be, but still not necessarily getting there. You obviously had to start Tackett Curtis, and we know that he wasn't necessarily ready as a freshman. The linebacker play just wasn't that good, right? There was a lot of missed tackles. There were a lot of bad run fits. A guy like Jaheim Thomas, who started his career at Cincinnati, balled out there, transferred to Arkansas, had a really good season for Arkansas in 2023. He just hits the portal. He is one of the more polished, refined linebackers that you see across the transfer portal. And USC is looking at this linebacker and saying, hey, we could use a linebacker that is a sideline-to-sideline guy and is a football or a tackle magnet, right? This is a guy that just finds the football, makes tackles, 6'4", 235 pounds, 90 tackles in the SEC in 2023. This is a name that for USC, I'm certainly keeping an eye on. And the last name I want to talk about, and this is a name that you might see a lot of buzz around in the next couple of days. Now, he's not officially in the transfer portal yet, but Zalarian Hurd. He's a true freshman at LSU right now. He's played in all 12 games for LSU. The situation regarding him is he is a guy that wants to play tackle, but you look at LSU's team and they got 2 NFL caliber tackles that are coming back in the 2024 year. So there's some buzz around Lance Hurd hitting the portal and looking for an opportunity to go play tackle. And if he's a guy that hits the portal, I think USC and countless other programs need to jump on this opportunity because there are not that many high caliber tackles that enter the transfer portal. You don't get that many cracks at these kind of guys. USC obviously wants to bolster this offensive line, both in pass protection and establishing that run game going into the Big Ten. Zalarian Hurd is a guy that is a Big Ten caliber offensive tackle and in my mind would be an immediate starter for USC in 2024. And you talk about a guy like Elijah Page and potentially Zalarian Hurd as your bookend tackles, 2 guys who are going into only their second year of college football. You talk about not only 2024, but what this offensive line could look like in 2025 and in 2026. That's what excites you the most. For USC, if his name enters the portal, this would be, in my mind, an immediate top target for USC. Those are some names that are jumping out. Again, we'll continue to update USC, what they're doing in the transfer portal. If names pop up, we'll obviously be talking about guys that I think USC should go out and get. I'm having a blast doing this. Appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. Would love to hear your takes about Miller Moss in the comment section and what you think this quarterback room should look like in 2024. And we'll talk to y'all later.